You are about to see the men and women of the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office working at their task of making our community safer. You will also see the stories of crimes that have been committed. We are looking for these subjects. They are Jefferson's most wanted. The presence of a weapon in an armed robbery increases the severity of the crime and the degree of risk to the victim. Armed robbers frequently work in groups to intimidate their victim. That was the case in this incident. 2 of these subjects have been arrested. The third is still at large.
On Sunday, January 29, 2017, 3 subjects perpetrated an armed robbery in the 500 block of Bourbon Highway in Terrytown, Louisiana. Willie Burton, a black male 21 years of age, is still at large. Burton is wanted on 2 counts of armed robbery and 1 count of attempted armed robbery.
Anyone knowing the location of Willie Burton is asked to contact Crime Stoppers or Detective Harold Wishan with the JPSO Robbery Section at 364-5300. Law enforcement officers put their lives on the line every time they report for duty. On some occasions, those lives are taken from them, depriving the community of a dedicated public servant and a family of a husband and father. Several weeks ago, a business in the 3700 block of West Bank Expressway placed a large plastic container on the counter to collect money for slain Westwego officer Michael Louvier. That someone would rob the grieving family of funds they desperately need is despicable.
A white male and a white female distracted the clerk while a black male took the container. All 3 subjects left the business and fled in a dark-colored vehicle believed to be a 2004 to 2012 Mitsubishi Galant with a temporary license plate attached to the driver's side rear window.
Anyone knowing the identity of these 3 subjects and or the location of the vehicle is asked to contact Crime Stoppers or Detective Keith Dowling with the JPSO Burglary Section. Business burglaries cost all of us because the losses of a business are passed on to the consumer. That means we all pay when a crime is committed. Since we have an interest in the matter, it should be our job to help apprehend these burglars.
On Sunday, February 12, 2017, Anthony Gerard, a black male 45 years of age, perpetrated a burglary at a business in the 2000 block of Manhattan Boulevard. Anyone knowing the location of Anthony Gerard is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 822-1111 or Detective Keith Dowling with the JPSO Burglary Section at 364-5300.
Lately, you've been a very busy man. You've been appearing on TV shows other than mine, which I don't like. But there have been all of these, not all of these, but at least 2 cases of home invasion and multiple homicide. And in one case, it was like a father-son, if I recall. And in other cases, it's people that, have been arrested before. We've talked before about the culture of crime that's responsible for most of the difficulties that we have. How in the world do you address that?
Well, we address it in many different shapes and forms. The real question is, how do you prevent that? And the fact of the matter is, it's very difficult because these are conflicts. And in these 2 particular cases, this was all about drugs and ripping one person off of their drugs and their money. And that's what led to multiple shootings and multiple homicides in the other, is that they come together, they know one another, these are not random, and they are engaging in a business or trade that has significantly high risks and disastrous downstream implications. And we see that in both of these cases. So the other thing that was unique about both of these cases, we made arrests on both sides of the transaction, as it relates to that, and or the rip, as we call it. And, so this was not a clear case of a victim and a perpetrator. They took on the role of both during the course of this transaction. And that's what made it kind of unique. The men and women of the JPSO did a great job in putting together a lot of evidence and information in a very short period of time in order to bring about a successful conclusion to both of these cases in making the arrest necessary and putting the neighborhood at ease.
More than one person has told me, how'd they do it so fast? And I said, well, we're very good at what we do.
We are, it's hard work, it's boots on the ground matter. It's that human capital and the investment and have the technology working for you as opposed to you working for it, and sharing of information and kind of thinking out of the box in some respect in some of these investigations and checking things out, and the timing of same sometimes can be as important as anything else.
But you can't be everywhere. I mean, that was a known drug area. You know what goes on in there, but you can't be there all the time.
Well, actually, one case was, the other case was not.
Oh, really?
And it was very much an isolated incident on Oak Lawn. It was tenants renting a property, bringing this problem to that particular neighborhood. A lot of angst and anxiety in that neighborhood because they don't typically see any of this kind of stuff going on in that neighborhood. And it just highlights the situation of when you have transients, meaning folks moving in, moving out, not spending a lot of time in one area, not really caring about the quality and the fabric of that community. This is what happens.
Well, I apologize to the people on Oak Lawn because I lumped them together. My point was going to be, you see something, say something. Since
Absolutely.
We can't be everywhere.
In any case, I mean, you know what your gut tells you a lot of things. Act on your gut. A lot of folks will say, we didn't want to bother the sheriff's office. It's not a bother. Information is power. The more we have, the better off we are. We never know when we're able to link any particular piece of information provided to us to something else.
Another thing that was scary recently was that the 911 system went down, and we were back in the pre-Katrina days. Was that a national, statewide, or local?
Well, the 911 system did not go down. What went down was the cellular phone service provider's ability to connect from their system to 911. The 911 system was alive and well. That national service provider had to send out a notice to all 911 centers as well as all of their customers saying, we have a glitch in our software and you're not able to dial 911.
Is there any way we can get some redundancy there?
Well, that's on them, the provider.
Oh.
I think they had an issue embedded in their software that they had to resolve, and they actually resolved it fairly quick, and we're back up and running, and we were able to take calls from those the cellular phones of that national provider.
Now, you're very busy, your people are very busy, but lately there's been some talk nationally that you might have to deal more with the subject of deportation of people. Are you really equipped to do that?
It's a very complex issue. And in the end, the issue really becomes, there really is no sanctuary city for violent criminals. That's kind of a misnomer. Most everybody that I'm aware of, if they have a violent criminal that's here illegally, they're notifying ICE and they're being deported. This issue gets caught up in other parts of immigration. If someone is just simply here illegally, they may have come in on a tourist visa and they were due to leave out in January of 2017 and they're still in the country in March of 2017. Actually, that's a violation of the law. They have overstayed the length of their tourist visa, so they are now in this country illegally. And these are referred to as status offenses. They're misdemeanors. There are those talking heads and soundbite politicians who have a strong desire to compel local law enforcement to arrest these people, detain these people and hold them for deportation. Sounds great, but in theory, but in practice, immigration is not deporting these folks. They deport folks under what is called the Priority Enforcement Program. You have a felony conviction, you are a documented terrorist, you are a documented gang member, and things of those along those lines, and those are the priorities by which they deport folks. It is rare that immigration is going to deport someone and hold them in jail merely because they are out of status, because they don't have enough space.
Right.
And we're worrying about sanctuary cities. We have a sanctuary border. In April of 2016, I think there were 38,000 illegal aliens come across the border. They were only able to push back 3,800 because if you have any other kind of passport other than a Mexican passport, because of the compact agreements that we have, we cannot move you back across the border into Mexico. So if you have a Guatemalan, El Salvadoran, Nicaraguan, Honduran, Panamanian passport, you come into the country, you go to a detention facility, they hold you for 30 to 60 days, and then they give you a notice to go to court, and they let you go. And that's where we're having the issue where people just aren't showing up. You go through that deportation proceeding, and then they fly you back to your origin country. And it's a very lengthy process. But until we minimize and get our hands around the border, we're not going to defeat this issue from the inside out. We're going to defeat it from the outside in. So while we're doing it, if we're doing it from the inside out, while we're doing all of this, they're still coming in illegally. We got to, and I think President Trump's approach for the first time was meaningful in that it's multi-systemic. You got to tweak a bunch of different silos that interact with one another. And he's one of the few that has identified the downstream implications of this. Those folks that are waiting to come into this country legally are punished by all of the ones that choose to come in illegally. And that their time could possibly be shortened, the ones trying to do it legally, to come into this country because they're all interrelated. We're only going to let so many people in, and they do actually look at the number of folks that come in illegally. So we got to get our hands around this. We got to do it in a meaningful way. It's got to be in an ordered and structured way. We got to have the infrastructure in place before we start doing all of this, because if you keep putting the cart before the horse, you're just going to have a problem. And that's what the arguments are really about right now, in my view. It's not really about whether or not people want to do it or not. There's no sanctuary city for a violent criminal. I think everybody recognizes them. They want them out of their community.
I'm almost sorry I asked you that question because it is so much more complicated than I had any idea. And you've worked to make it as clear as possible, and I thank you for it. Thank you, Sheriff, for a few minutes of your time.
The Economic Crimes Unit of the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office has been dealing with the practice of skimming credit cards through a device that reads your information while the card is in use. Because the device is all but unnoticeable, surveillance video is key in apprehending these individuals.
On Tuesday, February 7, 2017, at approximately 9:22 a.m., a white male entered a business in the 1200 block of Veterans Highway and placed a credit card skimming device on the ATM machine located inside. The suspect then exited the business on foot. As seen in the store video surveillance camera, the subject is a white male with salt and pepper hair, wearing a long-sleeved light blue shirt and black shorts.
Anyone knowing the identity of this subject is asked to contact Crime Stoppers or Detective Stephen Bowman with the JPSO Economic Crimes Unit. Vehicle burglary is one of the most preventable of crimes. The one thing we should do is to lock our automobiles. Your property and your vehicle is at risk. If your identity is stolen, you could be the victim of fraudulent credit card charges or lose money from your bank account.
On Tuesday, December 20th, 2016, A vehicle burglary occurred in the 300 block of Woodmere Court in Gretna, Louisiana. Later that evening, the white male and white female seen in the store video surveillance attempted to purchase merchandise with a credit card taken in the burglary.
Anyone knowing the identity of these two subjects is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 822-1111 or Detective Rebecca Macaluso with the JPSO Burglary Section at 364-5300. Terrorism is one of the top concerns for our society today. Though all law enforcement is on the alert to halt terrorism, the FBI, because of its national scope, is uniquely qualified to investigate and prevent terror attacks. Special Agent in Charge Jeffrey Salet came by our program to discuss this.
Sadly, throughout the world in the United States, specifically here we are in our AOR, you can have internationally inspired folks in any location. We don't need to be in, a predominantly radical community to have somebody radically inspired.
Okay.
But I think what you're seeing across America right now is you're seeing a manifestation of various people that have a level of hate. So the thing that is the most difficult for us is the lone wolf actor, the homegrown violent extremist. So, and I give you examples. In San Bernardino, you had somebody who hates America, and then decided that they were going to get even with America. When you go to Orlando, you had somebody who hates America and had an issue, and again, this is preliminary, what's in the news, an issue with the LGBT community. You look at Charleston, South Carolina, and that was a hate crime where you had Dylan Roof who went in and shot up an African-American church. You can go to what just happened in Dallas, and you have an African-American individual who was angry with the police. So you're seeing all different manifestations of hate. And I think the line that I use often when it comes to counterterrorism or really countering violence, major violence, is vigilance is the price of freedom. Just because you're in New Orleans and we haven't had an active shooter doesn't mean we can't. There's no known and credible threat right now. That being said, there was no known and credible threat in San Bernardino at the time that San Bernardino went down.
Or in Boston, it was college students who were radicalized and then bombed the marathon. You were involved in that too, weren't you?
Yes. So I was one of the leaders in the Boston division during the Boston Marathon bombing. I was actually also running the Boston Marathon that year, and that was the way that I describe it, and why we've been extra, engaged and diligent here in the city. Really in New Orleans, specifically related to Mardi Gras, is the Boston Marathon is like a 26-mile marathon, Mardi Gras. It's a party for 26 miles where people are celebrating, and cheering on people that are overcoming a lot of issues. When people run marathons, a lot of times they're doing it for charity, they're doing it for a purpose, they're doing it to overcome something. So you have those people lining that marathon route, and I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams would have expected somebody to do something to that marathon, and it happened. And I think, the society that we live in today, we should not live in fear. People should live their lives and live their lives positively and with positive energy and thinking about, the good parts of the world. That being said, we can't forget that we are a potential target and that we need to be vigilant and that we do need to be prepared. We need to be on the front end of things. So, for example, for Mardi Gras, we did intelligence-based policing. We were doing and making sure that we had checked to see if there were any threats leading right up through Mardi Gras and during Mardi Gras. We had folks and we had technology deployed to make sure that we could identify anybody if there was somebody, and then, be prepared to respond. So it's detect, deter, respond, and then investigate would be the last thing. So the detect is making sure that our intelligence is out there, that we're looking at the intelligence, that we're doing everything we can through intelligence and partnerships to identify the threat, okay? The deter is making sure, that if we identify a threat, we stop it before it happens, but also making sure that we're putting things into place that people know that we've hardened a target up, meaning it's not going to be easy for them, that we're ready. So it's detect, deter, respond would be the event occurs. We're ready to tactically respond as a community, making sure that we minimize the issues and loss of life, secure the target, and then the final phase would be the investigation to hold people accountable. That's a reality that we live in today, but again, I stress this. When people call me and say, should I be afraid? My answer is you should live your life and not be afraid. When you become afraid, or when we become afraid, you're feeding exactly what these terrorists and these folks, these people who have hate, are trying to accomplish.
The sheriff's office is attempting to identify the black male seen in this video surveillance that was taken as he was in the process of burglarizing a rear shed in the 1400 block at Dogwood Drive in Harvey, Louisiana.
Anyone knowing the identity of this black male is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 822-1111 or Lieutenant Kevin Colutre with the JPSO Burglary Section at 364-5300.
On Friday, January 13, 2017, and again on Monday, February 6, 2017, the unknown black male seen in this video surveillance stole a number of tires from two automotive businesses located in the 6600 and 3700 blocks of Veterans Highway. The suspect was seen driving a white GMC pickup truck.
Anyone knowing the identity of the black male subject and or the location of the pickup is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 822-1111 or Detective Dennis Thornton with the JPSO Criminal Intelligence Center at 875-3300.
One of the first lines of defense in the prevention of terror attacks for our community doesn't have a leg to stand on. It has four. The K-9 deputies of our laser division are trained to detect bombs, drugs, and/or the makings of either. These four-legged deputies are as dedicated as in any in the Sheriff's Office.
Our patrol dogs, we go between 8 to 10 weeks. Depends on where the dog, how the dogs are progressing. Sometimes they do take a little bit longer. The bomb dogs, they can go from 3 months to 5 months. Again, it depends on the progression of the dog, because that has a little bit more into it because of the amount of odors that they have to train on to get proficient. And it just takes a little bit longer for them to do that. Patrol dogs, they use all their senses. Their ears, their eyes, their smell. Their biggest one is their smell. So we're trying to, especially for us for patrol, because a lot of times when we do building searches, or if we have to go search a building for a bad guy, most of the times it's dark. We don't like to turn on lights because it gives our position away. So they learn how to use their nose very, very well. And the same thing with the bomb dogs, it's all about their nose. And as long as we can protect that nose, we're usually pretty much good to go. Our bomb dogs usually last between 10 and 12 because they don't have the rigorous beating, as rough fighting and all that we do with our patrol dogs. So they usually last between 10 and 11. Our patrol dogs, usually at 10, you can kind of see that it's a little harsh on them because they're getting arthritis just from all the fighting and being, fighting with us and wrestling and all. So usually about 10, you can start seeing a dog. We start looking at maybe to replace the dogs at that point. Initial training for us, I know other people do stuff different. The dogs know what the bite suit is because that's normally what they first train on. They get a kind of equipment asphyxiated on it, so anybody can be in. If we bring somebody with the suit on, the dog's going to attack the suit. That's just what it is. What we try to do with that, we start the dog on the suit first, just to figure out where the dog's at. In the sense of, will the dog stay in the fight or let go? We need our dogs to stay in the fight. That's the whole purpose. It's no good if the dog bites somebody or apprehends somebody and lets go because they get a little fight. So we train with the bite suit first to get that aggression up. Not mean. Everybody thinks the dogs are attack dogs. They're not attack dogs. They're biting hold dogs. They're apprehension dogs. They don't bite people just to tear them up or hurt them. The bad guys make the determination if we use the dog or we don't. We don't make that determination. The dog doesn't make the determination because he doesn't know. He's just listening to what I'm telling him to do and what he's been trained to do. Bad guy always makes the determination if we use the dog or not. If he comes out, he gives up, no problem. He gives up, he don't get bit. Guy gives up, goes to jail. If he doesn't, then we make the determination now, okay, look, he's not coming out, we give him warnings. He's possibly armed. What's the best way to doing this? Well, it's to send a dog. We have to have control of our dogs of all times. You can't have just this dog on a shark on a leash, anything. You've got to control him. If you tell a dog to do something, he has to do it. And that's just for certification purposes, too. You have to be able to have your dog come off when you tell him to. That's his fun. That's what he searches for. We're correlating the explosive odor with the ball. Other agencies, ATF especially, they use food reward as their reward. So the dog trains every day because you can't feed it unless you work. So this is we just come to find it's much easier for us. And for the bomb program, they use tennis balls, whatever the dog's willing to chew on or want, as long as we can correlate that with the odor, that's his fun. This is his stress relief and his fun.
The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, along with most law enforcement agencies, reminds you that texting while driving is not only illegal, it's dangerous. The Sheriff encourages all of our citizens to drop that phone.
The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office works every day to keep our streets safe. To be effective, we need citizens as committed as we are. Here are the images of the persons who are currently Jefferson's most wanted.
Attention, Willie Burton, a black male, 21 years of age, is wanted by the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office on 2 counts of armed robbery and 1 count of attempted armed robbery for an armed robbery on Berman Highway in Terrytown, Louisiana on Sunday, January 29th. Anyone knowing the location of Willie Burton is asked to contact Crime Stoppers or Detective Harold Wichon with the JPSO Robbery Section at 364-5300. Attention, Anthony Gerard, a black male 45 years of age, is wanted by the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office on the charge of burglary committed on Sunday, February 12, 2017 at a business in the 2000 block of Manhattan Boulevard. Anyone knowing the location of Anthony Gerard is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 822-1111 or Detective Keith Dowling with the JPSO Burglary Section at 364-5300.